Hello, everyone. My name is Claire Ayo, and I'm the senior educator. And today we'll be talking together for a whole hour on to learn how to make the Halloween bag project. So it's very exciting to be doing this with you today. So here is the bag. Maybe I can just change cameras here so that you can see it just a little bit up close. So it's a very fun and quick bag to make. Any beginner level can do it. And I actually be showing a few of the sewing techniques at the same time. We'll be reviewing or doing for the first time the hot dog. I like to call it hot dog technique. I don't know if it's a real term. And also the French themes on this project. You've also noticed that there is an applique section. I won't go too much into details for the applique section because that has been reviewed. We've done a class in June. I'm sure we can put the link of my class, which detailed everything you needed to know about applique. So we're going to quickly go through that process, but it's really a fun bag to make for Halloween. And before I forget, I just want to mention you can write if you have any questions. Don't hesitate to put them down in the chat, and Monet will relay the information back to me, and I will answer as much as I can all of your questions. And if I've just shown a technique and you'd like to see it again, keep in mind that again, this is recorded, will be on the YouTube channel of Michael's Store, so you can always, as of tomorrow, go back to the class and just rewind and listen to it 1,000 times. Nobody will know, so don't worry about that. Don't stress out for that. You should also have the document, the project. I've written all the instructions in a document. You should have that if you want to just print it out and review it also as you go along. It's going to help you. All of the steps are in these instructions. Okay, so I think I've kind of went through everything. Let's start with the making of the bag. Again, just make sure that you get the instruction, the project instructions. It should be in the comments below. So there is a shopping list and a cutting instruction list. So it's pretty much detailed. I won't go through, I only have an hour, but one thing I do want to review with you is just talk about briefly the fat quarters. So what are fat quarters? Like, excuse me. To make this project, I recommend 4 fat quarters. One is the orange for the body of the bag. The other one is the purple for the handle and the trim of the bag, and white and back for the applique. If you're wondering what's a fat quarter, here's a fat quarter that I've got at Michael's. So it's basically a rectangle that is 18 inches by 21 inches. So fat quarter is actually just to make, for people who are very visual, imagine taking half a yard and then cutting that half yard in half. So it's instead of getting a quarter of a yard very thin, you actually have like a thicker rectangle, which is a good size to make a lot of projects. So for this bag, 4 fat quarters will allow you to do the project. And obviously with the white and the black, if you have scraps at home, go ahead and grab those scraps. But if you get a fat quarter, you'll have a lot left. And then you can use those when you're going to need them in future projects. And I wanted to show you what I got last time I went into Michael. So this was a whole bunch of fat quarters, printed fat quarters that came into one as a bundle. And those are a lot of fun. So obviously, if you can find some with Halloween prints, but if you love these prints, you can definitely do the bag later on with these fun prints, and you can even make Christmas bags. You can make, if you have a children's party and you want to hand out gifts, that you can make the same bags I'm going to show you how to make today, and make those bags with those fabrics, and it's just going to be very nice. So that's what I wanted to talk about for the fat quarters. Now we can go straight into the project itself. Let me see. As I mentioned, I'm not going to show you how to prepare the fabrics for the fusible web and all that, because it's in a class that I've already given in June. You can review that, but we're going to start right here now with having the pieces already all cut out here. So I have the body of the bag, which is the orange rectangle. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to fold it in half because it's a long rectangle, because I don't want to do any seams in the bottom. I want to make sure that it's very sturdy. So I'm avoiding a seam by simply folding it. And so once it's folded, this is where I'm going to position the moon to begin the applique. So you don't want to have the moon in the bottom. So having it cut in half, folded, not cut, sorry, folded in half, you have a better visual on where you want to place it. So once you're ready, you can remove the paper from your fusible web underneath and position it in place. Before I do that, I want to talk quick trick, because a lot of people don't want to make appliques with white fabric because you can't really see it on the camera right now, but lots of times you're going to use your white fabric and you're not going to like it because it has a shadowy effect. You kind of see the orange underneath the fabric. So if that is the case, and if you're trying to avoid using white on a darker background, here's my trick. I actually always use fusible web on the white fabric and then add a second layer. So I always fuse two pieces of white together. So I really have an opaque look. You don't see the color underneath. So you have a very crisp white for the project. So if that's one of your concerns, that's my quick trick. If you look here, it's a double fuse. I have one white underneath that glossy white. And so now I'm going to peel off the last piece of paper from my fusible web, and I can position it where I want to, and then flatten it on the background fabric. And so I can, then I want to add the bat. So in the instructions that I have, I recommend putting the bat in the middle. Okay, so if you're a beginner, that's where you want to position the bat, because when you're going to be doing the satin stitches, there's no overlapping the moon and the bat. So it's easy for you to make that section. If you're an advanced quilter or sewer and you want to push it to the side, you can then put it right here. And so you can do that satin stitch applique of the moon till here, and then you can go across. When you're finishing with the bat, you're going to be hiding that seam so everything looks nice. If you want to do, for example, this and have the ears, let me make it close up here. If you want to have the ear right up at the edge of the moon, then I suggest simply doing your satin stitch all around the moon and then adding the bat and then satin stitching the bat. Because if you want to, because you're going to be crossing over and you're going to be hiding the bat, it won't look nice. So hoping I'm not confusing anyone. If you're a beginner and this is the first time doing your satin stitch, put it in the middle. It's going to be easy to do. And if you feel like you want to make it just a little bit more difficult, you can go to the sides, but do the moon before doing the bat. And don't forget, when you're doing this, your stitches, you do want to add stabilizer underneath your fabric, and then you're going to the machine and you're doing your satin stitch. So it will help you have a nicer, cleaner stitch when you're making your applique. So that's what I wanted to, I'm not going to go, again, as I mentioned, I won't go into too much detail on how to make the applique. So I'm just going to show you what it looks like once the applique is done here. So again, it's a nice stitch all around. The bat is in the middle of my moon, so it's less, it's no stress to make the design. So I'm going to ask Monet if there are any questions so far for as at this point in the project.
I do not see any questions this far.
Okay, great. So we're moving along now. The next step, once you've done the applique, is to prepare the handles. So you're going to have two strips of 3-inch wide by 11, not 11, sorry, 21. So 3-inch by 21-inch. You're going to have two of those, and they are to make your handles. So let's go back to that here. So this is the handle, what is going to be the handle. So at this point, you are going to take your long strip, you are going to fold it in half. In the perfect world, I would be doing this with my iron right beside me because I like a crisp fold. But so here I have the first fold. You can see just by pressing the seams, I can see, and I have to make sure that the edges are straight. It's not the same thing doing this without a camera in between you and the project. So it should be a nice, crisp, evenly spread out. So your first seam is done. Now what you want to do is fold inside. Each edge will be folded to meet in the center fold. And so I would iron these together, flatten them out, and then you would have a nice folded strip. So I've got one already here. That one, see, it's been nicely pressed with the iron. So that's what you're going to do with both of the seams. All right. And now what we want to do is that we want to go to the machine and stitch on the edge that needs to be stitched together. I am sewing today with the Singer 9180. So I will be showing you, there's a lot of fun stitches on that machine. So I will be showing them to you soon. But before I do that, I want to go back here to say that always have a scrap piece of fabric to play around with your stitches. So for today, for the class, I'm just going to do a straight stitch. So, but I've already, this is really bad. Sorry, I'm going to make this close up. So this is the simple straight stitch. I've made sure that the tension is right, but you can play around. Like I found this stitch could be fun. This is a single stitch with a triple stitch, single stitch again, triple stitch, or you can go all triple stitch. There's so many options. So, and there are many decorative stitches on the Singer SC9180 you could play around with and just have fun with it. So I'm going to the machine. Now for this section, I have a purple thread in my bobbin and purple thread on top, 50 weight. You can also go with 40 weight. So I'm taking stitch the number 3. So stitch 3 is right here. And the stitch 3 is basically needle position completely to the right. And sorry, let me try this again. So I want my foot to be on all of the fabric. So I want to make sure that the whole piece of fabric is under the foot. I'm aligning the edge of my foot to the edge of my strip. This is the folded portion here. And I'm going to start stitching. And I'm basically ensuring that I'm keeping, I'm going to slow this down. I'm keeping the edge of my strip with the edge of the foot. And I'm increasing. I love this machine because when you put this here, it has a slider for the speed, so you can control the speed, and you can also, you don't need the pedal. Like for right now, I'm sewing without using the pedal. I'm just pressing start, and with the speed, I'm adjusting the speed as I go along. And I'm trying to go fast, and I shouldn't, because when you're making this project, you want to make sure that your stitch is even, and it's definitely not going to be even. That's the joy of doing live TV because, you know, it's do what I say, not what I'm really doing. So you would have a nice straight stitch on one side. And if you like to have that symmetrical look, you can actually go and stitch on the other side. You can even do a decorative stitch in the middle. The machine has so many stitches available. There are lots of choices. So that's to stitch your handle in place. And now I'm
Claire,
going
we
to,
do have a couple questions about the handles.
yes.
Someone asked, they wanted to confirm that if that was a French seam and could you use bias tape?
Okay, the French seam is not yet. We haven't even, this is not a French seam. The French seam we're gonna see at the end of the project. And this is a strip, I wouldn't use bias because you really want something to be comfortable because it's the handles of your bag. So you're gonna be holding your bag with it. A bias, it's thinner, I like a thicker handle. So, you know, if you have some bias tape that you want to use, um, make sure that you find it comfortable in your hands because I like to go from a 3-inch piece of fabric folded, it becomes like a 1 inch, a little like 3/4 of an inch. It's for me, it's a good size. So again, I never like to say no because this is when you open up so many different ideas and things can come. But before you use bias to make that section, just make sure that you find it comfortable to keep in your hand. Okay.
Okay, and someone else asked, could you use a stabilizer on the straps if you wanted a more heavy duty?
You could use, well, okay, I just want to make sure that we're using the right terms. So a stabilizer is when you use a stabilizer for embroidery, it's not necessarily something that stays. I think what you're referring to is more the, I lost the word. Oh boy, there's another type of interfacing. You might want to put in interfacing if you like to, and if you're a quilter and you have batting back home, you could also add a section of batting to make it thicker. So yes, go ahead and do add interfacing, non-woven interfacing because I mean, no, woven but not stretchy. Because if we're using cotton, we don't need the stretchy, but you could definitely add that in as well. Not a problem.
And the last question I have is, are you backstitching at the ends of the
Not
handles?
Good question. My God, yeah, great. So not for the handles, because the next step will kind of backstitch the stitch. If you're a seamstress and you're used to it, go ahead. But a lot of times as a quilter, a lot of the backstitching I don't need to do because the next stitch is going to be blocking that stitch. So whatever you're more comfortable with. Being a quilter, I know my next step is going to ensure that that stitch won't open again. So whatever you're more comfortable doing. All right. So I'm going to continue if there's not a question right now. And so I am going to talk about how to assemble, no, sorry, how to stitch the handles onto your trim. So let's go back to, I just want to make sure that everything's nice. Okay, so when we're going to add the handles to the trim, so the upper part of the bag, you're going to need to measure. So I bring my tape measure back on top of that edge. So I have 13 inches here. So the center of that is 6.5. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take count 2 inches to the right, and I'm going to put in a clip. If you prefer pins, go right ahead. And I'm going to take 2 inches to the left, and I'm going to place a clip as well. So I like to put my handles 4 inches apart. So by doing that, it ensures that I have the 4 inches and that it's well centered. So now all I have to do is add my handle to those clips that I've put. Now I just need to make sure that I am not twisting my handle. You see, it has to remain nice so that when it's done, It's not twisted, it's a nice, it's not twisted, basically. That's what I'm trying to say, sorry. By wanting to really explain it to I kind of lose my words. So now at this point, you can just continue with those two clips on, or you can stitch the handles in place, whatever you feel more comfortable with. So for the project, I've stitched it in place just to make sure that it wouldn't move in the next section of my explanation. So again, the handles are stitched in place still 4 inches apart, and the handle has not been twisted when I installed it. So now I'm going to show what I call the hot dog technique. So why do we do a hot dog? Why are we complicating ourselves? It's because and I'm sure if you've done pillowcases, I'm sure you've done that technique before. It's a way to be able to have no edges, no open seams on the inside and outside of the project. So it's a nice clean finish. So I love making the bags with that hot dog technique. So we have a clean seam both on the inside and outside. Okay, so let's go ahead and I will show you how to do this part. So basically, I have this section of this rectangle when it's I'm trying to explain it. So when this project is going to be, when that section is going to be finished, this is basically going to be folded in half. So it's the trim. So if you are visual, okay, so this is going to be the top of the bag. So let me go back here. So this is actually this part of the bag. Okay, that's why it's a longer, because it's going to end up being folded in half. Okay, so now I'm going to take that orange, and this is the body of the bag with the applique. All right, so this is the right side, and this is going to be actually stitched in the bottom here once the whole thing is done. So I'm gonna put this right sides together, all right, and I am going to pin them, or for me, I'm clipping them because I don't like pins. And so this is where I'm going to have my seam in a little bit. Now, what I'm going to do, because I have such a long piece of fabric, I'm going to roll it. See, I'm rolling it. So I kind of think it's going to look like a sausage inside a bun. So that's why I call it the hot dog technique. So I have this in the middle. I'm going to make sure that the handle remains in the middle too. I don't want it to fall in that section because I don't want to have it stitched into the bag. So it's with that layer, the body of the bag. And then I'm taking this fabric and putting it above here. And I'm going to take more clips and clip it into place. And so I can take this clip now and add the third to it. And same thing here. What I like to do here to make sure that nothing falls is I would actually take an extra clip, put it in, and then remove that one. And same on this side. So I add a clip and I can remove that one. So now I have this, what I find to look like a hot dog, and I'm going to stitch a seam all across here on the machine. So in order to do that seam, I am going to use just a regular stitch. So let me go back here. I'm probably going to use stitch 1 here. So it's, and I'm keeping the same stitch length and everything. So now I am ready to stitch it in place. And so now I am going to start by, I would just want to make sure that my seams are well, not my seams, sorry. My fabric is well aligned. I'm gonna bring it in the underneath. And I'm gonna start with a back stitch. So I'm gonna back stitch at the beginning of this project and at the end of the project. So again, I like the question that was asked just before, because I was actually going to talk about it here. So let's see here. So it's doing a stop, and I'm going to go into reverse, and there I'm in reverse. I'm gonna keep my needle down so that if I stop, if you see I pulled off the wrong clip. So I always make sure that my needle is down so that when I stop sewing, the fabric cannot move under the foot. So I kind of went pretty crooked. I'm actually very crooked. So I'm just gonna lift my foot and just reposition because. So now I'm at the right place. I'm gonna do a back stitch and then go with the front stitch. My foot, my needle down, and just keep on sewing. Again, I'm aligning the fabric on the edge on the right side of the foot. And I am making sure that, let me just try another way. If I go back here, maybe you guys can see just a little bit better what I'm trying to do. And so here you have to, I always like to keep a null or a point, any of these, so that I can just keep everything in line, because it's really important to have all of the layers stitched together. So there, I like that. And my handle is here, so there's a little bit more to stitch there. And again, I want to keep my needle down. I want to make sure that everything is in place. Of course, I really wanted to do this seam live so you guys could see it, but it's also a very difficult seam to make when you're so far away from the machine and have a camera in between you and the machine. But I can do this, no worries. Here we go. Just a little bit more. And back stitching here as well. I guess I back stitched this. Let me bring this up. So there, I'm done. Okay, so we have stitched, I've tried to do a straight line just to show it doesn't need to be completely perfect. It's your first time. We can take a breather. And so let's go back here. This is where the magic happens. First of all, are there any questions so far, Monet?
Someone was asking what the hook you were using. I was actually looking it up, trying to drop the link.
Yes, it's it's part of the Memento tools. So
Mhm.
it's kind of like an any pointy things that actually, you know what? If you have your seam, the seam ripper from that comes with your machine, you can use that as well because it really holds it in place. So the seam ripper can sometimes be your friend. So yeah, so it's a straight tool all that is from the Memento accessories. But again, if you have your sim ripper, you can use it for the with the same in the same manner. All right, so I'm going to show you what is the hot dog? Why do I call it the hot dog? And what does it finally end up looking like? So this is the fun part. So let's go back here. So now you get to pull this orange fabric and the handle. You get to pull this out here. Of course, I want this to be happening, and it's there. I got it. And this is the magic. This is the fun part where it actually, you have a beautiful trim on your bag and no apparent seam, right? So this is the top part. Let's take a closer look. So you have a very nice stitch here, sew here, and it's just as nice in the back. You don't see any seam allowance on either side. So it's worth the hassle to start learning the technique and all that. It definitely makes a nice finish. And once that is done, I would definitely press the seams to make sure that everything lays nice and flat. And at this point, I'm going to go back to the machine. I would use stabilizer again. I would add my stabilizer to the back, like here. I would add it, and I would go and stitch that section of the handles in place. So let me just show you this bag again here. So let's make it closer. You see how I've done a triple stitch all around here, kind of like a rectangle here and here. So this was stitched in place with a stabilizer in the back. And all across here, I've actually used one of the decorative stitches on the machine to go all around here. You can also do a simple straight stitch or any stitch. Have fun. This is the time where your personality shows through. And again, have a piece of fabric beside from all of the extra scraps that you got from the project. Play with the machine, find all of the different stitches that it does, and find what suits you to make that section. So you can do that. You stitch all this around. And you repeat for the other. You also need to repeat the same thing to the other side of the bag. Okay, so let's roll this back out. You're going to do what you've done here. You are going to repeat it on this side. So again, you take your that rectangle. Let me zoom out. Sorry. So you have your handles. You have the rectangle. You bring this right sides together, you clip them together, and you make that hot dog. And now the hot dog got even bigger because you got this to roll inside as well. So you roll it into the center of the bag, center of the trim, and you roll this over and you do it again. So you see now I kind of like made a big bulky, but it has to be even thinner to fit. So you got to do that on for both sides of the bag. And once you're done, you're ready to make the final part, which is the French seam. But before I get there, I just want to make sure, Monet, that there are no questions with regards to the technique I just showed.
Someone did ask about a stitch and ditch
Yes.
on the back.
Okay, so in that's a good question. So stitch in the ditch doesn't really is not appropriate to this stitch because let me just go back here. So, you know, if we would have X-ray eyes, you would actually see that here there's let me just put this one on here and let me make this bigger. Yeah. So you basically have no seams on this side and all of your seams are within here. So to do a stitch in the ditch here, which would be like underneath here, doesn't add value to what you've just done. What you want to do is you want to secure by stitching all of these 4 layers together. You want to kind of reinforce the bag. So make sure that, let's say one of the, if this initial seam breaks, at least you have a decorative stitch here that is still holding everything together. So it's really for the structure of the bag. I wouldn't hide it in the ditch. I would really put it above here. You can put a triple stitch, any stitch that you want, but it has to be visible. It's adding that extra layer to protect and ensure that your bag will stay strong. Okay. Is there any other questions, Monet?
That was the only question.
Okay, perfect. So we are now going to look at making the French seams. So the French seams actually allow you to finish the bag without, so you have a nice seam outside, and when you look on the inside of the bag, it's just as nice as well. You won't have any fabric fraying, you won't see anything, it's a nice clean finish. I love that finish, especially for a bag like this. It really, we shouldn't have these these threads popping up. So that's what I like to do when I make a bag. So I'm going to show you how to make the French seam. It's really simple. So you are going to start by folding the bag folded as if it would be the finished seam, the finished bag. All right. So basically, you're folding the bag right sides out to go do the first seam. Okay, just trust the process. So oh my God, I'm finding having one of those moments. So I've actually pinned everything in place so that I'm sure that it's going to stay. Even this is a sample. I ran out of the trim fabric, so I couldn't add the trim, but just follow me. Just let's say this is the bag and you're ready to stitch it together. So I'm going to go onto the sewing machine, and I'm going to take the stitch 3 actually. So if you look there, the needle is going to be again at the far right of the foot. Just like it's actually the same stitch that I've used to make the handles. So it's stitch 3 on the SE 9180. So I am, oh yes, that's the other thing I wanted to show you. So one of my tricks also, instead of starting with the edge of the bag, which has like the last two pieces together, I still am pinning everything together, so I'm sure that it's even there, but I'm going to start reverse. I'm going to start at the end, at the fold here, and I'm going to work my way up. So again, and this time also, I'm going to start with a back stitch and then move forward and just sew all along. I'm just gonna have this piece of thread in the way, so that. Oh. And I'm back stitching at the end. Oh, my hand is in the way, I'm sorry. And there we go, we're done. So the first stitch is done, and it is on the right side. So you're looking at the bag as if it's finished, and then you have that seam. And once that is done, you can press the seams open, and I'm gonna be turning it around, and definitely. So this is okay, this is the seam I've just made, and I kind of cheated. I prepared that other side already, and I pressed it to make sure that it would lay flat and that the seam would be really centered here. And that is what's really important to do. Really the secret lies in this part. So what I usually do is I tend to put my fabric like so, and then iron it flat like that, so that I'm sure that my seams are nice and flat, and then turn it and make sure the seam is at the edge. Basically, let me close up here. You don't want to have a bag where that seam is like just off to the side. Okay, so if you do that, that's where the problems will come along. So you really have to make sure that that seam is at the edge and you press it down to make sure that it lays flat. Okay, once that is done, you can go back to your machine. And the trick here, let me see. So what I want to do, I'm going to bear with me. Oops. All right, so let's go here. I wanted to show you a close-up of that machine. So the S9180 has a lot of decorative stitches that you can play with, and also text. I'll talk about that just a little bit later. So you can definitely play with all of the decorative stitches I was mentioning when you're making that final stitching the trim on the hot dog technique. But back to the first basic stitches. So when I was referring to the third stitch, it was this one. So it goes to the far right, which is what I just did with that. Now I'm going to go back, depending on your the seam allowance, you can go with the seam in the center or seam completely at the left, because this next stitch, you want to be able, when you're sewing, you want to make sure that that needle is really hitting on the left side of your seam. So you have a whole section that has seam, and you want to be stitching that next stitch just after the seams, because you want those seams hidden. Okay, so I'm going to try, well, I know I've tested it, so I know it works. I'm staying in the center. If you're having problems with your machine and you see the seam allowance showing through, then just bring your needle more to the left, move the needle positioning on your machine. So I'm putting it there, and I'm going to be making the next stitch. And again, I am going to do a back stitch to start off, and then a front stitch and sewing. Again, I just have to take this thread out of the way. You want to make sure when you're making that section, you want to slow it down and just always feel to make sure that, yeah, my seam is not going to be caught in the needle. And so you're stitching along. And if I want to show you sorry, let me just move my camera quickly. And go. Here's another view. So it's really the seam. Oops, sorry, I gotta move my hand out of the way. The seam is really on the edge. Then your foot lays flat onto that edge, and your needle is right after your seam allowance. And then I'm going to do a back stitch and finish my stitch. So when you do that, okay, let's turn this around. This is how you get a nice finish on one side. Oh, you see, oh no, that's just threads I need to cut out. So I don't have any of the fabric pulling out, just the threads that can be cut away. But so you have a nice seam inside and a nice clean on the outside. So that is how I finished the bag on each side. So you have a clean finish here around the trim and a clean finish on the sides right here. Monet, I'm going to ask you, are there any questions so far? Is everything working well?
We don't have any questions so far, and I was just letting you know that we do have 15 minutes left.
Perfect. I'm like right on time. I can't believe it. This is
You are.
Okay, so I kind of went through the whole rundown on how to make the bag. Now I'm going to show you a few other things that you can do after that, because I mentioned that I'm using the sewing machine S9180, and what I haven't said at the beginning of this is that it's this machine, actually you can pop this out, and of course, yeah, there we go. So I can pop it out, and it's actually an embroidery machine as well. So just put that in, all right? Of course, you have to change the foot and everything, so I'm not gonna go into there, but it's just to show that you can also embroider with the machine, and that just opens up a whole other um, uh, um, so many other things that you can do with your project, and I wanted to show you the possibilities. So here I actually wrote trick or treat in the software, and I sent it to the machine to embroider. So of course, if you're going to embroider, you are going to do the embroidery once you've finished doing the hot dog technique. And once before your bag is finished off with the French seam, you are actually going to take this and add a stabilizer behind the fabric, put it in your hoop, and put it onto the machine. And you can write anything you like. If you're wondering, well, how do I do that, Claire? I know that I believe it was in August that I did projects in the hoop with the Singer SC9180, where I showed you how to do projects using the embroidery. And at the end, in the last 15-minute segment, I actually showed how you can write things and add that to your embroidery. So just go back to that class and you can see how to add any kind of embroidery. You can even do your own embroidery design and add it in. You can write things on it. So again, it opens up a whole new possibilities. If you're making, again, Christmas bags for Christmas, you can actually write the name of the person the gift inside is for. So it's really good because you're not using paper. It's like the gift that keeps on giving, because the gift comes in a bag. So you can think of doing that as well. And if you're thinking, well, I'd like, if I'm giving if I'm using this bag as a Christmas bag, I need to be able to close it. So again, I'm gonna send you back to the class we did, I think it was in September, where we showed the buttonhole techniques. And in the buttonhole techniques at the end of the class, so just forward to the end of the class, I showed you how you can make buttonholes on a bag, and then add the handles the same way you do the handles here. You can make the same handles and close the bag. So with the buttonhole, again, you can close your bag, this bag that you just learned how to make. You can add a strap with buttonholes to be able to close it. So you can put the buttonholes at the top, or you can put it in that section of the bag so that it has a nice ruffle effect on top. So many opportunities of things that you can do with the project. I'm sorry, I just threw this at Monet. Monet's probably saying, oh, where are those links? So I'm sorry, Monet, I forgot to mention them before, but those are all classes that you can find in the YouTube channel of Michael's store. And I think that those were all the little extras that I wanted to talk about, make sure that they were, so I'm sending it back to you, Monet, to see if you have heard of any other questions that I can answer, because we have a few minutes left from this class.
Um, no other questions, but everybody loving the bag. I did actually see when you were sewing the last part, somebody asked, did you flip it inside out um to sew that second part?
Yes, okay, so let's go back to that one here, there. So let me see. So the first stitch is actually when you're folding, when the bag looks like this, you're gonna do your first stitch on both sides. And then you are pulling it inside out. And again, I pressing the edges so that they are nice and flat. And you are doing the second stitch. So let me close up here, one more time there. So you see, I have this other stitch. So this is the last stitch that we do. The last stitch is on the inside. So you see it on the inside of the bag. But, oh, sorry, here it is. But once you open up the bag, it really doesn't show because it's really a nice, sorry, a nice seam. All right, so the last seam that you do is on the inside of the bag. The first seam is on the outside of the bag. Are there any other questions?
I am not seeing any other questions, and I'm about to drop the link to your buttonhole session now.
Okay. So it's fun because every project that we do, it kind of like you learn one technique already. So if you followed in June, you learn how to make the applique. So it really opens doors to making all different appliques. Then in August, we had the embroidery section on that Singer SC 9180. So you're more comfortable doing the embroidery on one side of the bag as well. And that was just like the hot dog technique and the French seam to really close it up. So you've got all the techniques to be able to make your own bag without any problems. So I just want to say thank you for everyone for joining in on the call today. It was a lot of fun. And we have more demos or projects coming up in the following weeks as well. So just stay tuned. We will be back with more.